Welcome back. Jim Broomall here again from Shepherd University, and my guest right now is actually one of my former students, Cameron Mallow, who's been in the area over this past summer doing some personal research projects. And what Cameron's going to offer us today are some of the narratives from the soldiers of the 1st Virginia. And I guess I became personally interested in this regiment over the course of my book project because of the really good account of John Dooley, this published kind of slightly after the war in 1867, and his experiences as he crossed over these fields on July the 3rd, 1863. So directly opposite of us is the Cadore farm, and you can see, of course, marked by the fence line, the Gettysburg Turnpike, and we ourselves are positioned right along the Union line on Cemetery Ridge. And I think as we've been trying to expose over these past 3 days, wrapping our minds around this massive battle and all the discrete fights therein is perhaps most easily done through the story and stories of individual soldiers. And so Cameron, I guess, can you give us some details about what you've been working on? And you've extracted, as I understand it, 3 specific narratives from 3 soldiers who were here on July the 3rd, 1863?
Yes. The project I'm working on is an individual research project, independent. I'm researching all the soldiers of the Battle of Gettysburg, actually. All the casualties, men that were wounded, killed, missing, captured. But Dr. Broomall here invited me to discuss about 3 of the soldiers from the 1st Virginia. The first one I'll talk about is the Colonel of the 1st Virginia Infantry, Colonel Lewis Williams, Jr. Second one is Private Color Bearer William Mitchell of the 1st Virginia Infantry. And then the second one is Jacob Ponlack. He was a private in Company I of the 1st Virginia Infantry, and he was wounded after he picked up the collars after the first flag bearer went down, which more likely was Private William Mitchell.
Okay.
So Colonel Lewis Williams was on horseback. He's one of 16 officers to ride horseback that day. He was ill. He was not feeling the best, so that's why he decided to go on horseback, even though they told him not to go on horseback over there on Seminary Ridge. He gets close to the Emmitsburg Road where a cannon burst hits him, knocking him off the horse, and then he is mortally wounded also when he falls on his sword on the ground.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
He is actually captured and taken to a U.S. field hospital behind Union lines, and then he ends up dying on July 7th or 8th, and then eventually is buried in Baltimore, but then is re-interned to Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond.
Okay, and for those of you who maybe aren't aware, many of the Confederates who fell on these fields were, unlike this individual story, but were placed in mass burial pits to be reinterred in the post-war period. This was a massive effort undertaken primarily by actually middle and upper class Southern women who spearheaded a lot of these soldiers' cemeteries across the South. Virginia in particular had a large number of these places. And so this individual soldier, though, because probably his rank, his story is a little bit different, and his treatment was perhaps a little bit better of his body. And that's why we actually can kind of learn more, I think, of his story today.
And then the second 2, since they tie in with each other, I'll just go ahead and explain both of them. The color bearer, Private William Mitchell, he is actually killed while carrying the collars near the Emmitsburg Road. So his account happens on the opposite side of the road from the Cadore farmhouse here.
Yeah, and again, I think that's one of the remarkable things about where we are is we are just a couple hundred yards away from the very spot in which this happened. Just a kind of a remarkable connection to the ground, and then understanding, again, these narratives through the lens of these individual stories.
And the part is, he was wrapped in a blanket, buried on the property right here at the Cadore farm, near the house, about 10 feet, according to some report, the report I'm reading, and was a floorboard from the house was used as his headstone. But then they told his mother where he was buried at,
And this is extraordinarily common. So soldiers go to great lengths to try to mark and identify where their comrades fell. And so you see these stories in which they do use things like fence boarding, pieces of
Yes.
wood to mark these graves temporarily, with the hope that in the best case scenario, the family is going to be able to reinter the body at a later date. What unfortunately does happen, and this is one story that illustrates that so well, is that many of the men actually are going to be left here and will eventually become basically unknown. They're anonymous, and in fact, almost 40% of all Civil War dead are unknown because of scenarios kind of like this, that their identities are never entirely reclaimed.
And of course, with my project that I'm working on, I'm hoping to actually find exactly who is still missing from this battle.
Okay.
Over the years, have been so many sources written about individual soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the ideas of the project also is to not just try to find the hospitals they were sent to, but also find out if maybe one person has them listed missing, but there's actually another source that actually has what happened to him.
Okay.
So we can
Fill in the
minimize,
gaps, yeah.
fill in the gap, a big puzzle.
Sure, absolutely.
And then my final one, he is a survivor of Pickett's charge, is Private Jacob Portland. He was an eyewitness to the regimental battle flag going down, and he himself ran up, picked the flag up, and crossed Emmitsburg Road, and then was wounded himself in the arm and shoulder. He did return to the Confederate lines on Seminary Ridge, and then he actually answered the roll call on July 4th with his arm in the sling, ready to see more action.
Yeah, and as probably our audiences know well, I mean, these flags are incredibly important banners. In some cases, they're made literally by the family at home. Large presentations unfold in 61, and then these colors are guarded with a great deal of sanctity. And if the colors do fall in the fight, the onus is on the men to pick them back up and to make sure the flag doesn't stay on the ground for any extended period of time. And there's some really famous stories of fierce contests on the first day's field and the second day's field, in which opposing sides are struggling over these colors, because to capture the color is a great honor.
And the interesting part that I get out of it, these men who are going into combat sees a flag bearer go down, know that they're going to be the first one to get hit. So what's he do? He actually drops his own musket to go pick the flag up.
Right, and this plays into, I think, kind of the ideals of the period, this projection of manliness, and what's the expectation of a Civil War soldier is one of kind of very much courageous acts and obligations, duty, and things like that. So these are really important moments in a soldier's career, as they intersect with larger ideals of, again, masculinity and manliness in the antebellum era.
As from when I had your Old South class with the yeoman farmer trying to improve himself in life, these incidents that they're doing, like him grabbing the collars, could end up maybe projecting him in after war.
Yeah, and this is one of the themes that we've been talking about over the past 3 days, and that's the connection between the home front and the battlefield. Again, a man's actions on these fields matter not only in the eyes of the comrades that he's surrounded by, but again to the people back home. What are they going to hear about his behavior on this field? How is that going to impact his standing, his station in that community? How is his family going to think about his behavior? And again, upholding these very specific ideals. They're absolutely key foundational elements to, in this case, Southern culture, but these norms are transcended by section and, of course, connect to the North as well. Well, this has been fascinating, Cameron. Again, Cameron Mallow, he was one of my students at Shepherd University, and he's continuing his studies at Shepherd right now before he embarks upon a career perhaps in education or in public history. So Cameron, thank you so much for your time today. We deeply appreciate it, and thank you folks for continuing to tune in to our live stream from the Gettysburg Battlefield.